Good morning and welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. It is a morning of no makeup, a cute dog, a little snow, and some struggles. I want to show you what I'm working on. I'm working on the next Cordelia, the February Cordelia, Will You Be Mine? And there's an issue where the hair is, right? Hair is an issue that it's in more ways than one. Let's look together. Okay, so I am at the point in this composition where I have got to do the face and hair. It's the last part. I've done all of the rest. And as you can see, I've put in a fairly hit or miss red background that I really love. The problem is her hair, because this character, Cordelia, it's a series, right? It's going to be a dye book at the end of the year, a dye recipe book. The dye color for this month, which will be February, is Passion Paper, which is this bright fuchsia color. It's not really fuchsia, it's more of a pink. But I'm loving this piece. I'll show you it a little bit better after this conversation. But I have gotten myself into kind of a corner where I'm ready to put, the face is not going to be a thing, right? Her face is going to be easy. The hair is going to be a thing because hitherto I have been using this color of sort of ginger for the hair. And as you can see, it's very close to the red and likely to get lost. Not only that, she's got her hair styled in kind of a Princess Leia here. She's got like little buns on the side, and I'd really like for those to stand out. So I feel like my choices at this moment are totally change the color of her hair, like she dyed it this month, and why not? I could absolutely do that. I would like to retain the continuity of having the character look like the character every month. So that isn't a super appealing option. I've taken out, I cut a few small strips of the ginger, and I've already pulled them out several times, but you can see it's a soft color, right? It's a fairly light color. It doesn't really hold its own well against her head. I could take out this outlining, which is like a rose color that is the outlining for the whole piece, and do a different color outlining. I'm not overly inclined, but I might have to. I've also taken out this second color, which is more of a pumpkin color than the ginger. It's this color. It's a little bit of a stronger color. It is more of an orange, but you can see while this one is darker, it's a bit softer, right? And it glows more than this one, which is more flat. It might be able to hold its own better. So my initial thought is to use the color that's more creamy pumpkin and flat, because it's a bit stronger on its own than the ginger color. I've cut some of the pumpkin color like really thin with my scissors. I've just cut strips in half with my scissors so that I have options. Now, I don't need to be precious and hold on to the twists in the hair, but I would like to try to. So instead of picking a darker ginger color, which I don't think is going to do it with this sea of strong colors, I picked some strips from my hit or miss bag, my rag bag, of this maroon, which is used in other places in this composition, like here. And I'm thinking if I do want to accentuate the swirl, what I might do is use this, because there's really high contrast. Honestly, I'm not sure if it's going to work. I hope it's going to work, because I've pulled out the hair a couple of times just now, and I can feel my frustration rising. So what I'm going to do first is just hook, I'm going to hook the background skin, and then I'll take you with me while I make a decision about the hair. Actually comes just, no pun intended, a hair around the top, right? She's like a ragdoll character. I'm going to first get the skin tone in, and then I'm going to try to work with that ginger. And this is the kind of color theory problem that we always have in rug hooking. And if I get it wrong, is it going to be the end of the world? Well, it's probably not going to be the end of the world, and I probably won't cry myself to sleep, but I would like for it to be perfect, because I am so in love with this February piece. So I'm gonna turn the camera off while I just quickly hook her face, and then I'll come back with you, and we'll see if there's any chance of keeping any color that's anything like ginger associated with Cordelia's hair. And incidentally, as I approach her hair and her face, I've got several skin tones going. So these are the colors that I've pulled out. It's kind of like the lighter, the darker, the darkest. For the nose contour, they are all really similar. So as with the hair, I might run into the same problem that I need a lighter or darker tone. So we'll have to see about that. At the moment, I'm cutting them to a 5, the strips for the face. And it could be that because this is a small area, it could be that I end up cutting them in half, cutting my strips in half with just a pair of scissors, so that I know I have a bit of a finer cut to be able to fool around this tiny area. This piece, I think, is, what is it, 12 by 16, I think. So it's a smaller piece. It's not a micro rug, but it might be that I need to get even a little bit smaller to change the detail and the scale of her face. Now, do you remember seeing, in your rounds of antiquing, or maybe you've done some needlepoint in the past, do you remember seeing vintage/antique needlepoints that are regular sort of gauge of needlepoint, but then just the face on someone will be petit point, which is a much, much, much smaller scale, just the face? This was a very common way of stitching a needlepoint in the Victorian period, just and right through the 1950s. Just switch the face to like micro, and you get a lot more detail, and the rest of it can be done in larger, in the case of needlepoint, stitches, and in our situation, loops. So I'm going to see how this goes. I'm sticking with my 5 so far. I'll bring you a little bit closer later. Let's see how this goes. Okay, incidentally, this is going to be, and I need to cut. I need to do some cutting. But when I'm cutting, right, as I'm saying, like I'm cutting my strips in half, just using the scissors I use, in this case, the ones that were closest at hand. This is tough to do. It's very fiddly, but I have my bigger, fabric scissors too, and that works great. But when I'm in a hurry and I just need the same color but smaller and finer, I just take my scissors that are already magneted to the piece, with my hook, and I just start slicing and dicing here, because now I got half a 5, which is going to work a lot better in here as I go around the eyes and stuff. But I think what I want to do first in terms of face is figure out whether my darkest value, which is this color, is going to be dark enough. And I really don't think it will, right? She's got to be pale, because she was pale in the first one. You know what? I don't think I showed the skin tone yet. No, I don't think I showed you the skin tone. I've got other Cordelias, but I'm only showing one for each month at the moment. I'm going to go look for a darker beige possible skin tone. I'm going to first look in my rag bag, see if I can find just one piece so I can get the bridge of the nose in there. Then I can get the 2 little dark eyes. Yeah, I think I have not done the actual face yet. I've done her from the back. So I can choose if I want to set a color of eyes, or if I just want to stick with like a neutral brown or something like that. Maybe the maroon. Something like that could change from one to the next. There's not such fine details that you won't recognize this character in the other compositions. I'm going to go do that, because you can see I'm already getting myself into trouble here. The face is always going to be the hardest part, isn't it? It's always going to be the hardest part, and it's going to require the most tapping of the brakes, because you're going to have to make smart decisions as you go. One of the decisions I've already made with the face, because it's such a small area, is I'm not putting my tails up. I'm dragging my tails. I'm keeping my tails under. I'm only putting loops on top, because I live in fear that in a space this small, where I'm about to try to add detail and expression, the tails of the strips are going to look ratty, and I really don't want that. All right, I'm going to go on the quest. The search is over. You were with me all the while. Guess what was sitting at the foot of, at my feet, at my actual feet? A bunch of other colors that could work really well in a scrap bag. So I'm going to choose one of these dark values and get the nose in. Now I feel like I have more choices. you know, my ideal situation is to not have to stand up and get out of the chair. And in this case, incredibly, I didn't. So, viva this day, and let's get going with the dark tone, get that face in. So, and I found some other gingers. These are slightly dark gingers. Here's my original pumpkin, right? So you can see there's quite a difference here. We could really be onto something. Let's hope. Cross your fingers. I just cut this darker tone. I just put it, I have a Bliss and a Rigby sitting here. I just put it through the Rigby and I cut these to a number 3. So those are really skinny. I'm going to attempt here to get that little, the line of the nose is important to me because she's supposed to look like a primitive rag doll. And if I put too much detail into the face, I'm going to kind of foil that. That already looks messy. I'm going to kind of foil that style. So I want to be really careful about the face. I'm going to hook this fast because this video isn't really about the face, but you can come with me and try to get the bridge of the nose in okay here. So you can see that I'm having a profound struggle at this point. I'm just pulling the whole damn nose out because it's driving me out of my mind, as you can see. I'm doing like diddle-dee-doos trying to get that nose in. So I'm going to try again. And this can happen. Obviously, this can happen. One thing I know for sure, this is such a finicky area. I think one thing I want to do is I want to sweep around with the skin tone, because that is causing a lot of flipping mayhem and obviously putting me in a hell of a mood. So let's come around here, and we're going to have to put the eye in last. Being very careful to not bring up the tails, because again, it has potential to look like rat-a-tatty-tooies if I've got a bunch of tails sticking up all over the place. So let's just complete this sweep, and then I will try to get her dang nose in. Let's see. I'm going to leave that here, making the point that it ain't easy with stuff like this. There's a lot of moving parts. Now, it is a primitive pattern, right? So you don't have to take these kinds of crazy labors. You might be better at doing faces than me in general, and I bet you are. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I feel like for the sort of prototype, it kind of does. So I am extra bad at faces. It's certainly going to create stress, right, when I try to do this stuff. But let's do it together, because you might be in the same boat with faces, and you might just feel like, man, I just cannot get, every dang loop has to be exactly in place to get the expression that I mean. I know what expression is drawn. It's like one little line. So the expression can be changed, altered, it could shift. But for me, I know what I mean for her face to say. And I'm being a bit crazy about getting there. I just pulled out the nose and stuff because I was fooling with loops, and some of the loops were higher than others. And going back to the idea of like a little micro mosaic, for me, I really don't want loops that are higher than others in the face, because I really need it to be pretty standard and clipped, so that we're just looking at a tiny collection of lines and nothing else. So let me see, is this color going to work? I might try to go back in. No, I better go with my smaller cut. I'm going to cut these finer too. I'm happy with the bridge of the nose, and I think, for the moment, I think I'm going to run a full-size 5 right down this side of it. That's too far over, to sort of stabilize and shore up that line for the nose. It is a perfectly straight line, so why not just put these in a 5 and see if these 5s can hold that line. And then I really need to fool around on the other side of the line. That is the thing, isn't it? Is how am I going to fool around on that side? I've got to get in the eye and the rest of the cheek. Oh, you know what? I was just going to cut it underneath. I could come down here and complete this little area. Yeah, this is actually going to work okay. All right, I'm going to go on quiet again because I might say a bad word just while I figure this out. When I figure it out, I'll tell you how I figured it out, and then you're going to have a leg up. Hey presto, I think it worked. I know I've got to work the eye right here, and I'll do that later. I might need to add a loop, but we'll see how it goes. I feel like that worked. So I'm not going to fixate on the face right now. I just wanted to be sure that I could get that detail in, and it looks like it's coming along just fine. I'll probably continue doing the face in these two shades of the flesh colors. So if you end up getting this kit, I will include at least 3 or 4 colors, flesh colors, for the face, so you can fool around in the same style. You know, it is tricky. If you're experienced, you know it's tricky doing the face. It's really tricky. But it's important to get it right for yourself. And obviously very primitive or no face at all also works, right? You could definitely do no face at all, and that would work just fine. And in the grand scheme of things, I go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly when I get ticked off. And maybe you do too, and that's just the way some of us react dynamically. But at the end of the day, you see, it really didn't take that much time to figure out this hard kind of corner of the face. You saw how long it took. I sped it up, but it wasn't like, I was growing roots in the ground. If I was like at Target or something like that, I would have spent more time watching Jocelyn choose which pack of Pokemon cards she wanted. So in the grand scheme of things, this was not super time consuming. It's just fiddly, and I don't do well with fiddly stuff. That's why I always struggle with faces. But I also always get there in the end. And do remember, if this is not your bag, the face part, just do no face. Just do an anonymous face. And that works really well for a primitive piece too. Good. All right. One other thing I want to do with the face is, obviously I'm going to put lips in, but I do want to put like a little bit of a pinky cheek color. So I'm just looking at some of my leftover colors because this piece has a lot of pink in it. I think this one is pretty, but I think that's too blue. I think it's too cool. I might want, maybe this. Yep, that's it. This one's a little bit more of a warmer pink. I think I'm going to go for that. I just want to give her, and I've got my number 5s here. I just want to give her a couple of loops in the cheek. On this side, maybe just one, so that she looks like she's blushing a little bit. You know how, and I just made one loop and I'm cutting it underneath that heart. I don't even know if I can do a loop on that side. I don't know that I can. I think that's too tight. I'm just going to come here and give her a couple of loops. Just so she has like a tiny little blush. And it might be that these are too dark. I guess I won't know until later. So I did 2 side by side, and then I pulled a third one over to the side to make a triangle. And that's how I got that in there. I'm thinking forward to the lips, but this video isn't supposed to be about the face. It is quickly turning into a video about the face, but maybe it's helpful to watch me do the face because we never really get enough videos on faces, I don't think. I mean, at least not on this channel. Second guessing my widths here. I'm going to be quiet for a minute as I figure this out because concentrating really is the thing. I'm back into the fray here. Now I am going to leave this tail up here because I am right against the edge of the mouth. I have to say this is working out remarkably well. I only said about 20 bad words while that was sped up. Just the stress, right, of getting it right, that's all. So yeah, it's coming together here, and the next thing in my mind will be what color are her lips. See, I feel like I have a gap right there. I'm going to have to fill that gap for sure. I do have a gap there. It might, I'm just whacking this together, and I'm going to take a look at it when the whole face is done, and even the hair is framing the face, because the colors in the hair are going to really change the overall look too. So I'm going to rethink all of it and add bits, or maybe pull one loop out here and there just to get the exact expression I want. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of being naughty and carrying wool underneath as I fill out spots that are empty. And hold for me for a second while well, actually, I think I got it. Is this her lip color? That might be too similar to the background. I mean, I do want something that matches. Maybe I want to bring, No, that's too light, isn't it? Maybe more. I pulled this one out before. No, that's the outline color. You know, you'll have to do this if you have this as a kit. You're going to have to pull out your colors and see. Oh, I think that's it. And see which one. Is that the same as this one? Yeah. Which one do you think is the right one? Oh, look, I have a small piece of it too that I already cut in half. I think I'll go for that. Okay, yeah, those are some nice thin pieces. And then I had, remember I took this out. That's thicker. I'm going to cut a little bit of this in half because I would like her to have 2 little dots for lips, and I'd like one of them to be a little bit darker, you know. This is skinny. That's a nice skinny piece. That's going to be all I need. So I've got like the darker maroon and the lighter maroon. So let's fool around and see what could happen. Typically, I like the dark one on top because it's like the bottom one is fuller, you know what I mean? And the top one is like a little line. I'm wondering how I'm going to do first tail, start with tail, and then I might do one tiny loop. Let's try that. Let's see if that's the formula. One tail, one loop. I think that's it. And I'm going to cut it underneath, and then I'm going to do the lighter, trim the tail a little bit, and then I'm going to do the lighter piece, also cut in half under here. Sorry, Pedro the mailman's here. Buttons is going to lose his mind. You know what? Maybe I'll do 2 little, yep, I'm going to do 2 little loops. You probably can't tell on camera here. You can see it in the photos when I publish this, but there we go. That's it. That's it. I think that's it. Might be a fuller mouth than I was thinking, but for this moment, I kind of like it. It's where it needs to be. Now what I'm doing here is I am running sideways. I'm running a loop sideways, right, along her face because it's a tiny area. I could cut this in half, but I think it's going to work just as well if I just run this sideways between the loops and that tiny gap I've got. Now, the one thing I'm worried about is distortion. I do not want to distort her face, right, because it's such a small area. It really has to hold its own. The loops that we just did, they have to kind of hold up like a battery against the encroaching hairline. So as I see my loops that I'm pulling up touching the loops that I just did, I'm very careful. And, you know, this is, for beginners, this is like, what is she talking about? I'm feeding the loops from underneath, of course, right? That's basic, but I'm kind of twisting them as I go. And it's like a finesse thing, right? It's just, I'm figuring it out as I go. As I pull up, I'm twisting and pulling and manipulating that loop so that it lands exactly the way that I want it to. And that's really the only way that I can control the way that this tiny row of loops is going to appear. I like this dark, I'm loving the color. I like this darker ginger color against the lighter skin and that rosy pink that outlines the whole piece. I'm figuring this out as I go along. When you get this as a pattern or a kit, you can look back on some of these decisions I made while I was hooking it and think, yep, no, I'm not going to do what she did. I can skip right over that piece of stupidness and do something different. So I'm kind of experimenting here. That looks quite good, I have to say. That looks quite good. I'm happy with how strong that line is against her face. So I'm just going to look for some more of the dark ginger colors. Weirdly, I thought I cut a bunch, and yet they're nowhere to be seen. All right, I'll cut some now. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to just start the hairline right on the side of her neck, that nice tickly part under her ear, And I'm just going to run this darkest value of the ginger color around here. A little ways, because I do want to kind of maintain the knot that I drew. You certainly don't have to. The knot is making it more difficult for sure, but I'm going to try to do a similar sweep, hairstyle-wise, to what I did. I hope you can't hear that traffic. There's people revving their engines. They might be having some kind of strange psychological problem, feeling the need to make noise on a residential street. But I wish them well. All right, so I'm going to come along here and, yep, sweep it up. So as you watch me speed up a little bit, I'm just going to take my number 3s and kind of mimic the turn that the bun makes, the swirl, the curl. I'm contemplating my ginger again, the original color, like the original one that I dyed for her hair. The hair does appear in the first one. I'm contemplating my ginger versus my pumpkin because I feel like I've done such a good job. Here I am congratulating myself. Getting the swirls of the hair in place. I might be able to use the ginger in the end. Let's see what happens. There we go. I think that's okay. I'm going to have to look at it from a distance too, and right side up. But I feel like that swirled right in there. And now I'm going to be like a dentist with, I sometimes just kind of clip the edges of the loops just to soften them up a little bit and make them a tiny bit smaller. This is when I this is the clipping the bonsai tree part of the project. Sorry about Buttons. He's feeling very emotional because the mailman is here. I'm going to try the same thing on the other side. Now you see me kind of feeling around in the gaps. I feel like I have achieved a swirl, or at least some movement in the two side buns, which is what I really wanted for the hairstyle. And now, because it's a fairly fine area, at least the way that I'm playing it, kind of feeling around with my hook to see if there are any places where I could fit one more loop. I guess other people would call this packing. But yeah, I feel like it's just kind of completing the area and bringing up. You know, I feel like in a small area like this, if the loops are not, if there's empty spots, if there's too many empty spots, the loops will not stand up as well as they should. And if they don't stand up as well as they should, you get some areas that end up looking hollow. So while I don't want to pack, you know, every time I sit down and hook, this would be an area where I would not be as worried about packing because I feel like the loops really need to stand at attention to get exactly the face that I want. And I feel one tail in the back that I haven't cut yet. I think it's right here. I'm going to cut that. Do I want to pull up one more? No, I don't, because it's perfect. What am I doing? I'm packing. All right, let's see. I'm just going to have one more looking for ticks in the dog moment. See, these loops I can see are not standing really, really well, so I am going to force my hook down there and see if I can. Oh, that's the flesh color. Nope, never mind. Abort mission. I think we're good. I'm going to flip her around. Let's look at her together. Ave Maria, gee, it's good to see ya. There she is. The light is awful in this window, right, on this snowy winter day, but I'll take some good photographs of her. I feel like she's looking very good. I'm going to put this thing back a little bit. Let me see if I can pull you up to see more of the composition. This will be the February Cordelia, Wish You Were Here. And the text is down here. The light is awful, Wish You Were Here. And she's there with her Valentine's and the passion paper color of pink that is featured in this one. I will show you this a lot better in different light. This will be available as a kit and as a pattern. And this goes with the first one, which is Ring in the New. And Cordelia's cat is shown for the first time. So he will be the same cat in every one. I need to block this, which means press it so the loops kind of relax. I am really loving it. And does her hair stand out hugely? No, it doesn't. But I can see the sweeps of circles. I can see the hairstyle. I'm absolutely good with this. It might be that when you do your Cordelias, you give them gray hair or black hair or white hair or purple hair, you know, blue hair. But for the moment, I really like the way she looks. It's not, for me, this piece is not about the hairstyle. And I'm happy that I was able to keep this ginger color going because I really wanted to. And yes, it's very close to the red background. And no, I didn't think of that when I started to hook the red background. But I really love this piece. I hope you're doing the Cordelia series along with me. It has a real sketchbook quality to it, all of these patterns, and they are fun to do. So I will continue to try to work on parts of the composition that are likely to be the most difficult in these patterns. And you just bear in mind that you can always choose to not hook a face if you're completely not for it, or just hook it in a lot less detail than I did it. You see how her little cheek is kind of glowing? The cat is kind of looking over at her. I really love this piece. I will see you next time at Ribbon Candy Hooking.